Welcome back to the NPH Hour on News Talk Saga 960 AM. I'm your host, Jason Thom, and for listeners of this radio station, you're probably aware by now that in a normal year, we broadcast on this dial all the Raptors 905 home games that take place in Mississauga at the Paramount Fine Food Center. But this year, the NBA's G League replicated the NBA bubble at the Walt Disneyland Resort in Orlando, Florida. And I called the games from right here in my basement. It was an incredible feat that the league pulled off at a reported cost of $500,000 per team. Now, with franchises taking a big hit financially without fans in the stands, not every NBA team had a G League affiliate represented in this month-long event. But it should come as no surprise that the Raptors were all in from the get-go. This is a franchise that has already won a G League championship. They were most recently named the G League Franchise of the Year, and they have seen multiple players go through this development system and play huge roles in winning an NBA championship. Most notably, Norm Powell, Fred VanVleet, Chris Boucher, and Pascal Siakam. The Raptors franchise has also used the 905 as a proving ground for front office staff and coaches. An example of that is 905 Vice President of Basketball and Franchise Operations, Courtney Charles. This is his first year on the job, but he has spent 15 years with the organization in a number of roles behind the scenes, and he did it by working his way up. Charles is a former All-American NCAA track star who graduated with a master's degree and then took an unpaid internship with the Raptors. Much like some of those aforementioned players, Charles bet on himself, and it paid off. He stepped into this new role armed with the knowledge of helping the Raptors from afar during their time in the bubble. So he was ready for this challenge, but it was a challenge that went beyond basketball. He had to help a first-time head coach in Patrick Mutombo. He helped manage a roster that turned over almost half of their personnel in a 4-week span, and had to do it all with a limited number of staff because of limitations within the bubble. He did it with selflessness and practicing servant leadership, which is something that permeates the entire Raptors organization, which he saw firsthand as he was in that locker room in San Francisco as the Raptors celebrated their 2019 NBA championship. So it should come as no surprise that the 905 came just 2 wins shy of winning another G League championship just over a month ago. But really, winning a title was not what this particular challenge was really about. The Raptors 905 bubble season, very few people have been in a situation like that in the sporting world. 25 games, 15 days. I don't even want to talk about the games. I just want to talk about everything that happened off the floor and what you were a part of, what you saw with players carrying bags, media relations guys doing laundry. You know, how special was it for you to be a part of that and to kind of see people banding together because of the opportunity to be able to play basketball safely during a pandemic?
Well, first, I want to thank you for having me. What an opportunity to have a season. I think that's where it starts. The NBA did their bubble, and I was part of that in a way of preparing our players and to working with our staff as I was going to have to work virtually for that bubble scenario. So I knew all of what went into the NBA getting the NBA bubble up and ready, and how much work had to go into making it safe, and how you had to be accommodating and eventually allowing more staff in. And, you know, my day was coming as we were going much longer there in the playoffs. And if we kept going, I would eventually have gotten in. And it's when you lose that you realize that you did not have that experience, and you did everything you could from afar, and it wasn't just enough. So when you got to the G League opportunity, and now I'm in a new role, right? I'm in a new role where the accountability is fully on me to make sure that this is successful. And you start looking back at what did we have to do for the NBA, and you just start thinking of all the things that you want to really make sure your staff and your players have. And the G League opportunity gave me a chance to lead It gave me a chance to be part of basketball. Because at that point now I'm working strictly for the G League, and I'm not doing a ton with the NBA at that point with the Raptors. So for me, it was really just to get in and to be able to try to take this team to a championship. And we had a lot of changes. We had a new head coach. Obviously, you're always going to have some new players on a G League team as the roster turns over. So for me, it's an experience that's different, right? I've got a few players on the Raptors that I can say I've known for a couple of years. I've known since our championship run. So on this team, you're hoping you got one or two guys that come back, and you're realizing that everything's a fresh slate. So for me, it was a great opportunity of being able to apply myself in my new role. It was a great opportunity to lead our players and our staff. And then it was a great opportunity to actually have a season, because again, we're not in Canada. We could have been out from that standpoint, once the Canadian situation with the borders and unfortunately the numbers and where they were, we weren't going to be able to host here. And thank you to the MLSE and Larry and the board and Masai, and believing in having a G League team to develop our players was important. We were able to have that. So again, nothing but excitement and nothing but thankfulness for having an opportunity. And once you got into it, you realize nothing matters when it comes to, you want great food and you want great accommodations. The weather was what you expect from Florida. So there was no questioning that. But once you get there, you start realizing that it's really what you're going to put into it. It's not what you are going there to receive. And Chad and Pat were great in being leaders and making our players realize that you're here for a short period of time. We're here to get better as basketball people and to really, just represent 905 as well as we could. And I think we did that, even though we came up short.
I want to hit on something you said there, what you put into it. And I think that is something that, some people live their entire lifetime and don't get. So just talk about that for me, what you put into it, not what you're getting out of it. In a situation like this, you didn't win the championship, but everything that was put into it, like what did you learn? What did you see in the growth of people? Because I think it's something that's lost on a lot of people nowadays.
Yeah, a lot of times we go into things thinking that if we win a championship, then we get rings. And that's, the mindset of going into something to get something, right? But for us, being able to be part of this G League season meant we need to give. The season was enough of the giving to us. We need to give to the season, which means, we've got to represent ourselves well. We've got to show that this is important to us. Again, it's a livelihood, right? So for us, we're doing basketball, and everybody will say, "Oh, that's amazing," but it's work. Yeah. It's work. Everybody can, I think sometimes people criticize sports more than they would even, politics or other things in life, because it's that easy, right? Mm-hmm. It's how did you not make that shot? You were wide open. But not, some people could have 10 shots and not make any. And that's the reason why we love it. And that's the reason why we challenge our players to get better. But what people need to realize is that at some point you have to give to the sport as much as you expect from the sport. And sometimes you got to give more to think you're even going to get anything out of it, because there's so many people that want to play. There's so many people that want to participate. When we were there the first couple of days, we had someone from the catering team came into our meal room, and they were replenishing the drinks. And I said, thank you, appreciate you filling that up. And they said, no, thank you, because you guys are here. We're now, employed. Mm-hmm. And that's when you start realizing that there's a lot more to this than just what you think you're getting out of it. You're impacting lives. The better product that you put on, the more people want to watch it, which means more people are going to be impacted in a positive way. So for me, it was trying to make sure that every experience was a good one down there, and to make people realize that they were in a great opportunity of being able to do what it is they love. So it's about the giving, and I think our team learned that. And for some of the other teams, maybe that's why they didn't do as well, because they were thinking about other things. They got distracted. Next minute, they know the thing was over and they were ready to go home. We were willing to stay, which is a big part of it.
Yeah.
You got to want to be there.
Yeah.
And we were pretty disappointed when we lost. And it's funny because we came home and we're in quarantine, and a week later we're talking to each other and just saying, hey, do you miss that, long walk to the meal room, or, do you miss this? And it's just like, those are the experiences that you can't say you had unless you put in the work.
Before we go, I want to ask one more specific question, and it's something, I actually wrote about as well, about the championship mindset and the culture surrounding the entire franchise, because the Raptors905 really is an extension of the Raptors, and not just because it's their farm team or their G League affiliate, as they call it. You can see specific from Masai all the way down. But I think the one thing I want to emphasize people out there is that, Courtney Charles was probably the most overqualified intern ever in 2006, I believe, is when you started with the Raptors. Can you just explain what you have seen in that 15 years with the Raptors organization, culminating in the 2019 championship, where, we were talking about the bus, being on the bus of the parade after, but then now the fact that we are continuing. 2019 isn't the end. This is a championship culture that is now in this organization, and may I say, is now within the basketball community across Canada.
Yeah, I appreciate that. When I look back, I think back when I was an intern, and a lot of people, as I've shared many times, questioned me being humble enough to take a position where you're not necessarily being paid. There's no guarantee of a job when you were done. But for me, it was to be part of Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment. It was for me to be part of the Toronto Raptors, two iconic entities that obviously are leaders today in what it is that they do. So for me, there was no questions about it. But there is what we've talked on already, which is you've got to be ready to be selfless. You've got to be ready to come in and learn, and to be able to be a team player. And over the years, I was talking to somebody the other day, and I've gone through so many transitions that you don't even realize sometimes. You just think of doing what's next and what's best for the team, that you don't even realize your bosses of support have moved on, and the people who really got to know you have left. And for me, that's what I wanted to continue for everyone who comes to our team, is I'm going to be the person that's going to be selfless to help you even be better than me. And I'm going to help you become part of this team, or I'm going to help you to understand Canada better, or I'm going to help you to become the best player you can be. And it's funny because you don't see all of your paths ahead of you. So when I was working with Norman and Pascal and Fred, and they had to go to the G League, I used to tell them all the time, this is going to be better for you. I'll tell you all the reasons why. And now I actually work for the G League team as if I was working for them before. And it's funny because if I wasn't doing that, I would have to look at myself in the mirror today and say, man, you weren't doing right by those guys by making it seem like the G League was beneath them, or you had to go down to the G League. We don't use those terminologies. Patrick Mutombo has been great about highlighting that this is an opportunity for you to get better. And I take deep pride in making sure that our staff realize we're not going to always agree. We're going to have some disagreements to the point that it may seem like we're not on the same page, but this is because this is what it's going to take at this level to do it on the NBA level. In the NBA level, there's so many more games and there's so many more other things that we've got to become tight here. And that's what Patrick had to do in the bubble in a short period of time. Brought a whole bunch of players together that don't know each other, that have different agendas. And we all had to say, hey, And this is what I've had to do during my time here with the Raptors. And Bobby, Teresa, Dan, they've been able to be instrumental in being leaders of what that selflessness looks like, how we continue to practice it, because that's the part that's tough. You do it once and you think you're good, but that player's gone. You got a new player. He doesn't know you're selfless. You know, you've got new staff. They don't know you're selfless. You've got to continually build it, grow it. And that's what John Wiggins was able to do here at 905. And I'm glad to be able to be in this position now to continue what I've been able to do over the last few years.
The culture surrounding this entire franchise is what stands out the most to me. And having crossed paths with you a number of times over the years, it's no surprise that you have elevated to the point that you have. And, I think it's a point of pride to know that, my home country team values people with values like yourself. Thank you for the time. Thank you for everything that you do for the sport in this country. And I really appreciate it. And I look forward to continuing to kind of grow alongside, the Raptors 905, the Mississauga area, the greater Toronto area, but really across Canada.
Well, thank you to you specifically, because I know how selfless you've been and how many different ways of impacting this sport that you've participated in, and for all of what you've done for 905. Before I even came over, I've always heard from John and Stefano, and big shout outs to you, and thank you for all your support. And your viewers should know that they've got a great wealth of information in you alone. So not only the people that you'll be hosting, but for the stories that you can share alongside that are stuff that they should be really engaged and ready to hear from. So again, keep up the good work. And I enjoy and have the pleasure of working with you. And thank you.
That was Courtney Charles, the Vice President of Basketball and Franchise Operations for the Raptors 905, with a compliment that I really did not see coming, but I probably should have, because that is a man that takes great joy in uplifting others. And I can tell you this, that the Raptors franchise from top to bottom, all the way down to the 905, really are full of individuals like that. And I think we are lucky to have people like that at the highest levels of basketball in this country. This is Jason Thom for the NPH Hour, signing off until we speak again next week here on News Talk Saga 960 AM.